Ooh, you know something, Josh? Now I get to go on vacation and let these guys talk. It's that's about. Of course, once we get Jim talking, Blake and you and I could both go get a drink.
Yep.
I mean,
the Jim show.
The Jim show, and he thinks that's going to help ratings. So, what do you think? 9% appreciation on rentals? Does that sound in line to you?
Well, we've seen an unprecedented climb in rental rates, and the issue is really a shortage of housing. Right there, if there wasn't a long list of people typically applying for any well-priced, well-positioned offering, there would be no core inflation. It would be some type of deflationary cycle as people would have to incentivize.
You're trying to tell us something about supply and demand, Blake?
Yeah, it's kind of that way. It still works that way.
That's a long way around. Just go with the basics,
it's
supply and demand, and then adjust it for the environment you're in. But it's still, like, I think Blake's point right off the bat is there still is a shortage of housing, whether it's rental or sale, in Southern California for sure. And that is just driving everything which direction will go. Prices aren't going up because there's now a shortage. There's the supply of buyers has dwindled. A lot of people just decide. I think more people are sitting it out than they are anything on the buying side.
I've said this before. The cost of housing is still increasing. It's just instead of the sellers selling to make the profit, the extra money is going to the lenders to finance the deal.
Yeah, those lenders.
Well, no, it's not. I'm not describing it as nefarious or any other thing. It's just money.
Back to life.
Money has been available at below market rates for a long, long time, right? I mean, if we believe that we were truly going through a decade of core inflation at around 1 or 2%, then that's your choice to believe it. I didn't believe it because we saw how fast housing prices were jumping, and they're just not included in a lot of the inflationary measurement, but everything that's around housing has also gone up. So when you look at some point in every cycle, it's a cycle. So it's like there's upside to it, there's downside to it. And the downside to it doesn't have to be bad. As long as just like the stock market, shifting up and down, it creates opportunities. And if you're not selling, you're really not impacted. If you're selling into that market, then you become a buyer, and you're now being able to take advantage of the lower price.
Does it matter, Blake? If you're selling and you're a buyer, aren't you basically you're paying top of market? You're selling at top of market, but then you have to pay top of market because either that or you're going into a tent out there in Santa Monica.
And there's a lot of truth to that. And so, or you're leaving the area and finding cheaper housing somewhere else in the country.
Anywhere else in the country.
So over the weekend, I had my high school reunion, the 45th reunion, and it was
45th reunion,
right?
Wow.
He had to throw that in there.
No.
Wow.
The reason I'm saying it is because I'm still local to the high school I went to, and it's my reference to everything. And over half the kids that were kids then are now, at the age of retiring. They're in other states, and I was surprised how many of them left our area. So
it's actually told me that his reunion they were either in the local cemetery or in the local penitentiary, one or the other.
So they relocated one way or another.
One way or another, they relocated.
That's so.
Guess you grew up in a nicer area than him.
Well, so I've watched the markets enough to know that nothing stays significantly, stable. There's always a variance from one sale to another, sometimes too small to show up, and each sale is unique in itself. And before the show started, Jim and I were talking about if you wanted to sell at the top of the market, you would have sold probably in around March or April of this year and closed the deal. And if you're chasing that value for your price, the price on your home today or your real estate today, it's highly unlikely you're going to get that unless you just have a really unique situation where two people are competing for that house and really both want it because of how desirable it is.
Does that matter, Blake, when does it matter the price point? So if I were looking at Balboa Island, they're very unique properties, and they're only geared for a very small segment of the population.
Right. That's,
right. I'm using the extreme.
There was a story the other day, Miami, after the hurricane, they're seeing a resurgence in prices, but you're talking like Star Island, Miami Beach proper, where
Price
all
doesn't
that
matter.
price doesn't matter. Thank you.
Well, to give you an example, over the weekend I was talking to someone whose son works at one of the local high-end car dealerships, and they were talking about how the $300,000, $400,000, and $500,000 cars have been getting bid up when they actually show up because of the supply shortage, where they're getting some of the bid ups are more than the actual value of the car. So it's, instead of being a $400,000 sale, the car now becomes $1 million sale.
Wow.
And it's more than double the price of the car because two people who have the money are willing to pay for it. And I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it's happening.
I was in the market, but
it's happening more
Lamborghini
times.
announced this morning that they're sold out for 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm bringing it back to real estate, what my thought is it's going to be harder to get top of market, or is it harder to get top of market when you're in a median priced property as opposed to one of the extremes?
Yes.
Okay.
And in part because you have lending guidelines. A lot of people need the lending in order to qualify. And there's fewer people willing to jump in because the people who have a 2.5% or 3% mortgage typically look and go, well, why do I want to jump into a 6.5% or 7% or 7.5% mortgage when I already have a 2.5% or 3%?
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean,
unless they're
unless there's a need.
Yes.
right. But if you take a person that's just retired, they sell their house in California, they move to, let's just say, Texas, Arizona, whatever, and they pay cash for the house, they have no more house payment. That's not the decision we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that has a 2-story house in California and they're downsizing because they don't want the stairs anymore. I mean, come on, majority of houses are 2-story, at least in Orange County. And they're downsizing to a 1-story, but they want to stay in Southern California. And so they are looking at that scenario of, okay, wait a minute, what's this now going to cost me? And in terms of the payment. But I was going to touch back to the rentals too. Nothing's changed in California other than the economics, but nothing's changed for rentals to be built faster, to be built quicker, to be built cheaper. So that's the thing. If you can't build a rental cheaper, you're going to charge the $3,800, the $3,500. I mean, if you ever notice, most of these apartment complexes that are going up, they're 4 or 5 stories trying to maximize land, but at the same time, they're costly to build, so they're charging an arm and a leg.
Well, it seems like you almost have to, just because of, I mean, Jim, I think you and I have talked about it before, the cost variance just from, like, say, Arizona to California, just before you can even put a shovel in the ground.
Absolutely. I saw an ad, and it was current. It's a new house. I think it was Texas. It doesn't really matter. It was out of the state of California. And it's listed for $290,000. And I was looking at the house and I was thinking, that is a very nice looking house. The spec level of the house was very nice. It was 4 bedrooms. And I'm thinking to myself going, just to start that house in California would be, the land alone would be $280,000. You know what I'm saying?
So you have a little bit of a challenge.
Put that house on top of it. Now you're that house building in California is going to be they build at $30 a square foot. We build at $300 a square foot.
Wow. Continue our conversation. Blake Vartanian and Jim Norton are in that house, Realty Pro 100. So let's get to the topic that I actually had somewhat in mind. It was not my topic. It was Jim's. But
okay,
I'm going to blame you. I mean,
I figured I'm dead. I'm getting it.
So here, if you really like the topic, it's my idea.
Okay.
If you don't, it's Jim's.
Okay. Make it simple.
Make it simple. I'm a simple guy, guys.
You are the host.
I'm the host, and next to Josh, I'm the first. Josh has a mute button after the fact. I have a mute button before it even gets to Josh.
Well, I know Josh decides whether we come back or not.
Yeah.
So.
There you go. Hey, Josh decides whether I come back or not. So we all know you always have to keep the engineers and the producers happy.
Right.
Yep.
So Jim, you and I were chatting a little bit in the last couple of weeks about some ideas on how we can maximize the sale price. And, we talked a little bit about that. I've been promoting probably before interest rates even went up so much, that the first thing buyers think about is, I see an $800,000 property and I think I'm going to offer $760 or whatever the number is. And
simple, traditional. Let's see. Oh, the market's soft, so I'm just going to slash the price. I wouldn't have said 760. I'd have said about 720.
okay,
You know, major. They think
you're on the
it's a
front line.
It's
I'm on
not
the
a
back
fire.
line.
It's the problem is it's not a fire sale. It's a discount, but it's not a fire sale.
So okay, so yeah, we're not in 2010 where there's
Exactly.
every person has 7 or 8 properties they could make an offer on.
Right.
Whereas today, you know, there's still 3 or 4 people.
3,600 offerings on the MLS
Well,
right now.
Say that again, Blake.
About 3,600 total listings active in the multiple listing service for Orange County.
Wow, 3,600 just for Orange County.
Yeah, but that's so low relative
What is
to
that normal?
historical numbers. It's gone
Oh.
as high as 10, 12, 15,000
Wow, okay.
in the
okay.
past. So the norm would probably be around 6,000 or 7,000 would be a balanced market.
Okay, 6. What does that mean by a balanced market?
Well, where the number of sellers and the number of buyers will over time
Okay.
pretty much wash out,
Love that
and there'll be
market.
enough supply for the buyers that are coming into the
Love
market.
the balanced market.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Jim, you came up with this number, and I wouldn't doubt you because you're out there on the front lines that people think they're going to get that $800,000 property for 720. But here's the question I want to throw out there is, and this is what you and I were talking about a lot in the last couple of weeks, is instead of going, let's just go back to 750.
Okay.
Right. So if I've got 50,000, and if the seller were willing to even entertain that, you and I have been talking about the idea that maybe we got to use that same money to bring down the interest rates for affordability.
Yes. I mean, you're starting.
Do you
to
see that
it.
as a value?
Yes, it's starting to get in there, but most people are still stuck in the world of 20% down, fixed rate 30-year. They're not getting their minds out there to see what can we do creatively to expand the buyer's dollar, because it's time for that. We're back into that. So yes, can we use that money rather than cut the price? Can we offer back some assistance on a rate buy down into maybe some type of stair step, or I don't want to say variable. What do you want to use? What better word?
Yeah,
But
adjustable.
Adjustable type of thing, and you can buy that down. The problem is some people are also just kind of blanketing. I want 20K for a buy down. It's like, well, what's that going to get you? What's going to buy down? I mean, why is that number? And so you have to explain yourself to the seller. So you got to put your offer together properly if your agent's understanding what's going on. The problem is you've got 10 years of people not practicing this. They haven't seen this financial arrangement in over 10 years.
Have they needed to?
Straight, so I mean,
have they needed?
They haven't needed to. So
what in the last was it been 5 years since we've even since a realtor had to even consider a price reduction?
I think it's been 5 years since a realtor considered an open house.
Okay,
come on. I mean, think about it.
So you guys are seeing. Are you being that you guys are both? I mean, you're in different areas. Blake, you're talking to people all over from a management level, and Jim's talking to or seeing from a competitor's level.
Right.
And do the agents on the street understand real estate?
I hate to say it, but the more experienced agents do, because they were here. Let's say if you go back as far as 2005, it's not that long ago, but if you go back to 2005, you were getting creative. And then by 2013, it was being back a little bit back to normal. The market was picked up again, and a lot of the scars were healed. And then it's worked its way up, and now we're working our way back down, and we're cycling back down. And so, yeah, you have to have a lot of it. But it's an interesting thing. I was talking to an agent the other day. I had an open house, and there were some signs next to my signs for open house kind of across the main street. So I was finishing up. I gave that agent a call to see how traffic was, and remarkably, traffic was about equal, and we both had traffic. So people are out there looking, and they're seeing what they can do. The problem is that I think they go to a simple calculator, and they just do the 30-year fix. They don't look and see, okay, what are their methods I can do? Can I talk to the seller about helping me? And Can we talk about a buy down? Can we talk about different ways?
Okay, so we have
What
a
about,
question
I
here.
had one person.
Hang on, Jim. We're gonna have to deal with one question that came up first. We need to explain a buy down. Great question.
Okay.
Great question. I appreciate that.
You want to tackle it or me?
Go ahead. I'll take. Go ahead. It's not a problem. In fact,
you're the finance guy.
I'm the finance guy. Okay,
I don't want to get myself in trouble.
No, not a problem. So I just sent over, Josh, I just put a link in there in our chat. Can you put that on the screen for us? I actually did a 45-minute webinar for professionals that is geared where you as a consumer can actually watch it as well. A buy down is basically, there's a couple of different ones. There's a temporary buy down to bring you're buying down the interest rate. So it can either be done with straight dollars as a temporary buy down. The seller puts money into escrow and the payment becomes maybe 3% lower for the first year and then 2% in the next year and 1% the year after that. Or it could be 2% and then 1% and then it goes back to the fully amortizing rate. Or there's a permanent buy down, which is what I prefer because it's permanent. And there the seller is actually taking that money that we've been talking about. You take that $50,000 and maybe, and I don't know what today's rates are, say they're 7%, but you use that $50,000 to buy the rate down to 5 3/4 for the entire 30 years. The temporary buy down does not help you with qualifying. The permanent buy down does help you with qualifying. So that's the idea of the buy down.
Yeah.
So great question. And we have on there rsrloans.com/presentation/50406. That's actually a 45-minute webinar that discusses several ways of getting lower payments. That we just did that webinar last week or the week before.
Ron, can I offer something on that?
Yeah.
If you're a seller thinking about putting your house on the market, concentrate on how much down is someone going to have to pay to purchase your home and how much is their monthly payment. And if you wouldn't pay that for your own home,
say that again.
I said, have the valuation done where if somebody was purchasing the home at the price you're asking for the home, how much down payment would they be required to pay? And how much?
Let's make it simple here, Blake. So we're back at 800,000.
Right. And if somebody wants to pay 20%, is going to be $160,000 down.
Okay.
And let's say the mortgage rate is 7%. And then you look at that payment, and if you wouldn't pay the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance for your own house, I wouldn't ask somebody else to pay it either. So I'd figure out ways to solve it, to bring it down so that your comfort level matches the expectation of what the buyers are looking for. Because then you'll have a much better experience because you'll be in the market in your head. You'll be accepting of the market and the conditions that exist rather than fighting them and trying to be the outlier as the exception who's trying to get the highest price in the marketplace when that really isn't what's happening right now.
So what Blake just said there, just to make it simple, man, I'm just a simple guy. So that 800,000, 20% down at 7% interest is $4,258 principal and interest.
Okay.
Still have to add the taxes, the insurance, and if there's an HOA.
Right.
So what you're saying is, do I think that my house that I'm trying to sell right now is worth $4,258 a month plus?
Right. So you have to look at, from the buyer's perspective, because that's the empathy. That's what they're going to be asked to do in order to purchase your property. So when you understand what they're going through, it's easier for you to put your house in a position to win versus the other homes on the market. So you could even ask for more. If the ultimate outcome is that you want to get the highest price, then you better offer terms that make that possible.
Okay. So there's a big issue right there that, again, most people are not thinking of, is the terms might be more important than the price.
Well, and I've often said, Ron, that, if I could say to you, do you want to live in a $2 million house? And you're probably going to say, no,
Sure.
Or yeah, you'd like to live in it, but is it something that you feel you could reasonably afford?
No.
But if I told you could get it for $1 down and $1 a month, because those are the terms that are offered by the seller, you'd be all over it, right?
Absolutely.
We all would.
Right.
Right. I mean, none of us would say no to that.
Exactly.
So,
as long as it's in an area that I can deal with.
So it's dramatic, right? But it's a dramatic, example, but it gets people's attention that the terms are oftentimes more important than the actual positioning by price.
Continue our conversation. Blake Vartanian and Jim Norton from Realty Pro 100. So we've been talking about the concept, and I only want to spend about a minute on this because I want to go to another subject that is not really thought of, but we're going to talk about it here on Ron Siegel Radio. So when you're looking at a purchase agreement, we've talked about this before. The younger people that are new in the industry, they are not familiar with this thing right here. It's amazing how they have no clue that you can actually put this. It'll work when you put it up to your ear, right? And you actually vocalize and talk to somebody, right?
Yes.
They're thinking about just texting or emailing, and they don't want to talk. Is it out of line to say, Jim, I know you've got a listing on 123 Main Street. What's important to your seller so we can put this deal together? Is that out of line?
No, that's not out of line. Actually, that's how you should be approaching the market today. If your realtor is just saying, oh, well, let's do 20% down, they're not looking at the perspective of the seller, as Blake had mentioned. You can, as a buyer, you have to look at the perspective of the seller. As a seller, you have to look at the perspective of the buyer. And if your agent isn't looking at that, their experience level is probably, they need to get some help. Because they're not understanding in a market like this, there's all sorts of ways to structure the terms of the deal. I mean, Blake gave the extreme $2 million house. If they were offering $1 down, $1 a month, you take the deal. Well, that's an extreme. But the reality is, what types of terms are they looking at? I mean,
terms that make the deal work.
As a buyer, your agent should be looking at your terms.
What does the seller need?
Getting the best loan, you know.
Maybe the seller needs to stay there till after the first of the year. Right? Is that a term that you can put in there and say, you know something, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, I've got this you've got an $800,000 house. I want you to help me with $50,000 towards my closing costs, and you can stay there till after the first of the year. I mean, that's what you want. That's important to you. Can we do that?
Sure, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about being better than that? How about go 70,000, and I'll let you stay there rent free for 3 months.
Well, we don't want to do that because we know we have to be in within 59 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're not going to get into that part of it.
I forgot about 59 days.
We're not going to get into that part.
But you know what I'm saying? You can do, there's all sorts of terms you can do.
Right. So think about that. How your agent needs to have that conversation. Now, I want to go to one last point. We don't have a whole lot of time on it. Jim, you and I spoke about this one as well. Blake, we've talked about it before. But here's the concept. Can I use some of that $50,000 that we were talking about in the last part to incentivize? Do realtors work? Do they get incentivized if they make more money?
Absolutely.
They're human, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So am I fair to say that somewhere between 2 to 3% is the average of what a buyer's agent will make right now?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we came up and we said we're going to bump that, now again, $800,000 property, 1% of that, am I right? That's $8,000.
Yes.
Could we go and say, okay, we're going to take and make that 2 to 3, make it a 5? Is that legal?
It's legal, and it's a good practice under many conditions.
I know agents don't look at what they're going to make. I've heard that so many times that they don't look. Hogwash, because they're not out there working just for fun. They need to feed their family too.
We've all watched Pinocchio.
Right. So if I said that I've got an $800,000 property and the buyer's agent is going to make $40,000, could potentially make $40,000. Would that wake up some buyer's agents?
Absolutely.
So it'll get more people to the property. Could I possibly get more than that 800,000 if I get more people to the property?
If they, yeah,
I get a lot of people there.
Create a bidding war.
Create excitement over it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in times like this where you have a reduction in the number of buyers and a reduction in the number of products on the market. You've got to stand out from the crowd, and you're not going to stand out from the crowd by just saying, I got 5 bedrooms, I got 4 bedrooms, and
one story is not going to do it.
No, it's going to be what's going to catch the agent's eye to bring them in. And first thing that's going to catch their eye is, hey, look, I can sell them this one for 2%, or I can guide them this way and get them to look at this house for 3%, 5%.
You mean you might take them to a property that and it's all based on suitability. So that's a given. It's got to be suitable.
You can't force them to buy it.
Right.
But it's going to be on top of your list. I mean, there's no question. It's going to be on top of your list of things to show them, of what you're going to send to them.
Well, and if your agent's out there looking for value, we've had transactions where the property appraised at 1.1, as high as 1.1 million, let's say, as an example, and the buyer only paid $850,000 on the investment, because that's where the seller was at based on what the listing agent had, how they had positioned it in the multiple listing service.
Yeah.
So if your agent's working for your best interest, you might walk away with some equity built into the deal and the ability to add additional dwelling units if you're buying the right kind of property.
Okay, now you're getting into
Another
more topics
subject.
that Josh is going to kill me if we
No, we're not
if
going
we
to
go down that
No.
go down that path.
You know,
But here's the issue. Here's what I want you to understand with this: is there are a lot of ways that you can actually get where you want to be, and if you're the seller, to maximize that property before you ever think about lowering the price. And again, I'm going to put right there on the screen for you a presentation that we did. And Josh, I think, can you get that into the comments real quick? I think, are you able to do that? Maybe I can do it. I just did it. Okay, so if you want to find out more about scenarios to get more for your property, to get more activity on your property, rsrloans.com/presentation 49854. And I know if you're driving, you're not going to get that. We've got it on the screen. We'll put it in the show notes. But there's some ways. You don't have. First step is not to lower the price. The bottom line. Does that make sense?
Just run out and lower the price. You have to think about.
Do it strategically to get more people in your property. Because your goal is not to sell it for less. Your goal is to sell it.
Right.
Well, the first moment you lower the price, the buyer's first thought might be, what's wrong with the property?
There you go. Absolutely. Hey, if you have any questions, give me a call on this. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990.